Hello and welcome back to They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of Law Firm Alchemy. And my guest today, I am absolutely delighted to have on. I have watched him creepily at times from a distance on social media, monitoring what work he's been doing on the digital marketing side with law firms, and have been consistently impressed with the results he delivers, the content that he puts out there, him sharing his own journey, a whole bunch of the cool stuff that he does with his kids. I mean, there's just many layers to why I am excited to talk with this individual who is none other than Jason Hennessey of Hennessey Digital. Jason, great to have you on the show.
Charlie, man, thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be here. So thank you.
Awesome. All right, let me ask you the question. What's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Man, this is just like a softball, man. For me, I guess the answer has to be SEO, right? You know, and digital marketing, right? So, which is going to transition nicely to this topic that we're going to be talking about. But yeah, it's just one of those things, you know, people, you know, they go to law school, graduate, and, you know, in fact, our mutual friend, Ryan McKean, is going to start teaching my book, Law Firm SEO, at UConn Law. So it'll be the first time ever that SEO will be taught in law school soon.
That is awesome. And they have a follow-up book that they can check out, Honest SEO, so they can really double down on all of that. Both are, I mean, both are phenomenal books. So I'll say off the bat in terms of like what you've got out there, those books are great. I remember first hearing about law firm SEO in a mastermind group and people recommending that. I was like, interesting, let's check this out. And as advertised, it really was an in-depth analysis of law firm SEO. You strike me as someone who really puts it all out there. You're not interested in hiding things necessarily. So I'm curious from your perspective right now, what in the SEO field, we're at this intersection of AI and so many other things. What is going on in the SEO world right now that law firm owners should know about?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, AI is probably the biggest topic or the buzzword, I guess. And, you know, AI has been around for quite some time, but, you know, it's just kind of becoming more and more prevalent with like the launch of like ChatGPT and stuff like that. So I'd say the biggest thing is just to be careful, right? Because AI could be a strength, or it also could be a weakness, right? And so you just have to be careful on how you leverage AI, in particular to your marketing. You know, just by taking content directly from a ChatGPT prompt, you know, could be detrimental. You know, just taking that content, publishing on your website, and just thinking that you're going to kind of take over the world. So, you know, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, as I say that, I think that you are doing yourself a disservice and you have a disadvantage in the marketplace if you are not using AI with your SEO, right? So you got to have to find that balance.
Yeah, it's so funny. It reminds me of back in, I don't know, 2011, 2012, when people were talking about using article spinners, right? To, you know, write your 250 word article, run it through the article spinner 6 times. Congratulations, you have 7 pieces of content. Only now it is ChatGPT and can be used a little bit more judiciously, I suppose. Now, you've seen a lot of evolutions ranging from those earlier blogging days, external blogs, et cetera, now up to the very modern version that we have. When you look towards the horizon, what are you thinking about as the head of Hennessey Digital for all those clients you have?
Yeah. You know, I'm always constantly looking at like innovation. You know, how could we innovate? Like one of the things that we did recently was we had a hackathon at our company, and our hackathon is a little bit different. We're not trying to hack into like competitors' websites or anything like that. It's really where we give our engineers like a full week just to kind of be creative and solve problems with technology. And so in our hackathon, a couple of our engineers developed a tool using AI where we're able to basically take an entire website and translate the entire website into multiple languages, where, you know, unlike like a Google Translate, which is just using JavaScript on the front end where you push a button and it just kind of changes, but that content never get indexed on Google. This basically creates like URL structure. It creates rel canonical tags, rel alternate tags, right? So that's all the geeky ways of saying that. We're telling Google that this is the Spanish version of a page and this is the English version of the page. And so we basically launched that on a couple beta clients. And sure enough, the content got indexed, and clients that had no Spanish traffic were starting to get like, because you have 2,000 pages of content indexed, now you have like 4,000. And now they're starting to get like rank in a much less competitive market, which is the Spanish phrases. And, now, so it's been very effective. So that's just one way of like us thinking into the future for our clients,
That strikes me as something that your business does particularly well. I mean, you are a premium agency. I know that you work with different levels of clients. I'm curious, when you're building the agency and you're thinking about, hey, I could go in the kind of mass market direction, or I can go with this premium direction. What pushed you to go all in on that premium level?
Before this, my background, like I've been doing SEO for a long time, right? And so I've competed at some of the highest levels in SEO. I had the #1 and #2 ranking website for a long time for the keyword online poker, right? Which is super competitive,
Yeah.
and you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a day in revenue because you have those rankings, right? And so when I got introduced to law, which seems very competitive, I'm like, whoa, this is not all that hard considering the markets that I was in, right? But
all the law firm owners right now are like, don't you tell me not that hard, Jason Hennessey.
And it's gotten harder over the years, right? This is back in 2008 when I first kind of entered the legal marketing industry. But I think really in order to get those premium, it's the same thing with staying at like a nice Four Seasons hotel, right? It's no different, right? The experience that you get there is different, right? You show up, there's somebody to greet you. They take your bag, you walk in, there's beautiful fresh flowers. It smells, the aroma in the air, there's water, but not only just water, but there's like, there's like dragon fruit and oranges in the water. Right. And, and then you go to your room and it's beautiful and you've got this ocean view, what I mean? Like it's a different experience, and, and if I was ever going to put my name on anything, I wanted to kind of give that Ritz-Carlton experience. And the only way that you can do that is by charging a premium, right? And there's clients that want that level of service. And a lot of our clients are those people that stay at the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons. And it's no different than how they run their business, right?
Yeah. And I can see it offers the opportunity to be very holistic in your approach towards working with a law firm's website. So that seems to be another thing that stands apart is your approach to it. So I'm curious, someone signs up with Hennessey Digital. What are you looking at first in terms of how you're going to right size or amplify what they're doing?
Yeah. We have a pretty standard way in which we do things. So when a client signs up with us, typically, we're dealing with maybe 3 or 4 agencies that have touched that website before, and the code is just a whole mix match of like multiple people. So the first thing that we do usually in the first 60 days is just kind of break down the whole website and rebuild it, right? And then we build it for speed. We build it for performance. We have all of our own ways that we kind of all of our secret, I guess, SEO tricks that we kind of incorporate into the site. And then in some cases, we'll redesign the website depending on kind of like what we're working with. Sometimes like clients have a website that they love and we agree it's a nice website, but we still have to kind of rebuild the engine, And so usually that's kind of the first like 60 days. But in the background, we're also, putting together the full strategy when it comes to, their content strategy, their link building strategy. And then from there, we have like a whole like 127-day process where like every day we've got different things that we've got to do for these clients. And our team kind of follows that, to the T. And usually, after you've been with us for, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're really starting to kind of feel that notice, so.
Interesting. Okay. So Imagine that I'm a client, but I'm a client that you're going to sign 5 years in the future, right? Because I'm with one of those other agencies, but I'm also doing a little bit of DIY right
Okay.
now. What would you love me to be doing with my website that would set me up to be a great client of yours that doesn't have such a
Budget.
beaten and battered site 5 years from now?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm doing now is, in fact, I wanted to create a solution to that. And so I'm doing like a coaching product now where I'm helping to coach some of the do-it-yourselfers, right? The people that don't necessarily have the budget to hire a Hennessey Digital yet, but eventually wants to get there, right? And so you either have time or you have money, right? And those are the two
Yeah.
things that solve problems, right? And so if you have money, right, you can hire like an agency like Hennessey Digital or some of the other great agencies out there, right?
Yeah.
And then they do it all for you, right? But if you don't have the money, you have the time, right? And then you got to put in the sweat equity. But just because you have the time doesn't mean that you have the right strategy, right?
Right.
And so I personally offer like a coaching service. And that's not really like a shameless plug. I'm not really on here to do that, right? But regardless of if it's me or if it's just you watching YouTube videos, I would say just kind of get an education in this stuff. You can read my book. In fact, anybody that's listening to this podcast, send me an email, jason@hennessey.com, HENNESSEY.com. And I will put a book in the mail where I'll even cover the cost of shipping and handling as my gift to you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. And that will be a good start for you.
That's awesome. So from like a practical point of view, we've had the ups and downs of mass production of content, then the winnowing down of content, comprehensive. Should I be focusing on practice areas, geo-targeting via the website? I mean, what are some of the best practices right now that a DIYer should engage in?
Yeah. Publishing content on a regular basis, right? That's key, right? You want to be showing Google that you are constantly kind of like growing and evolving. Putting together like a grid of all of the practice areas that you focus on, and then all of the cities that you kind of surround yourself by, right? So if you are in Atlanta, you're going to have an Atlanta, personal injury lawyer page, an Atlanta car accident lawyer page, Atlanta slip and fall page, an Atlanta dog bite page, right? But then, in a smaller city, I don't know, Decula, Georgia, right? You need the same thing, right? And so that's basically, what you need. And the reason why you do that is because when somebody's doing a search in Decula, Georgia, which is a small little town up in more northern Georgia, they're going to just type in car accident lawyer, and then Google's going to recognize that somebody's doing a search from Decula, Georgia, and they're going to basically show that Decula, Georgia car accident lawyer page, right? So it kind of seems like redundant, like, holy, how many car accident lawyer pages do I really need, right? But that's the only way that you can truly compete without opening offices in every small little city to get in the map pack,
So that's actually an important point to highlight. That's something I've heard a lot of, even my own coaching clients struggle with, the idea of how do I expand geographically without just renting an office in every place? So you can start at least from practical on-site SEO.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Just start with practical SEO, start with your main city that you're in, right? So like if you're listening and you are, a newer firm that's just kind of getting started, just start with your small city first, right? And just kind of be the best content in your small city and then continue to expand. That's right.
So in the process, there are probably some potholes to avoid. I'm curious, Jason, what are some of the myths you most often have to bust or fixes you have to make for folks?
Yeah, I think everybody just kind of gets in the thought process that you just need content, right? That's it.
Yep.
That's the key. You just need content as king, right? And boy,
that old chestnut.
Yeah, that couldn't be further from the truth. Like I was on a call yesterday with a firm that, has been around for 15, 20 years, right? And they're still operating without a strategy, right? And there's just like random bloggers that that this person was paying on a monthly basis, and it's like here, and then they take the content and then they write the content, they publish it on WordPress, and there's no strategy to it. In one blog post they'll reference like the word car accident lawyer, and that will link to a blog post. In another, article, they reference car accident lawyer, and that will link to, a city car accident lawyer page, right? So the internal links that you are choosing to link to like need to be like very organized, right? Because if you don't, you're sending all these random mixed signals to Google and you're confusing the heck out of them. And so, if you're operating that way, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Because at least you're doing something.
Yeah.
But you could be doing yourself a disservice by just kind of operating without the right strategy.
Yeah, it makes sense. One of the things I see sometimes is there's some tie-in that people try and make. Like you hear people who are guru-esque trying to make some tie-in between social media and SEO. And so to me, it feels like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on there. What's the real stuff? What's the false promise going on in that space?
Yeah. I think, they both have their own kind of, advantages, I guess. Will SEO help? Will social help SEO? Yes and no. I think, just by basically having a presence on like a Facebook and a LinkedIn and a Pinterest or wherever else, right? Just by having like a profile and a presence, it established you as a real business, right? And so there's like trust signals that are being sent because you do have like, we call those foundational links, right? But the bigger part of social in terms of like helping SEO, like for example, we just recently did a study where we reached out to 1,400 different law firms to measure their intake and their response rate, right? We spent a lot of time doing that. It's probably like a 6-month project before we even kind of announce it, right?
Yeah.
But once we announce it, of course, our website's only going to generate so much traffic, right? But we use social media to promote it, right? And when we use social media to promote it, now people are, linking back to that, right? So we're getting the links. People are sharing it on social, so we're getting more traffic. People are going on stage and talking about our study, so now we're getting some word of mouth, right? So that's basically, it helps you to amplify the content that you put on your website.
I'm curious about that because as someone who loves looking at the metagame of what another company is doing from a meta level, someone observes you putting together that type of report, which reminds me of the Barbara Corcoran story about how she came up in the New York real estate market, which is she started sending press packets to the press, just publishing the sales of what were going on with her own commentary on it, taking information that existed and republishing it, kind of some similarities there. How could a law firm take this type of meta strategy and potentially apply it to their practice?
I think like we're doing this right now for a lot of our law firms. We call it like a digital PR campaign. And so we are doing it. So for example, if you have like a criminal defense lawyer in Los Angeles, right? You might do a full study about the most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles, right? And then you basically put together a full study, you publish it on your website, and then you go out and you pitch the local news, right? Because they're sitting there, and they're tasked to come up with a story that day, right? And so if you just show up with a story ready to go, they're going to love you, right? And so we're doing a lot of that, and it's very effective because not only do you get yourself in the media, but you're building the relationships with the media. And in most cases, they're turning this data into like news segments where they're actually going out and interviewing the local sheriff. And it's really magical. And these from an SEO perspective, because you're generating links as a result of it, are some of the strongest links that you can get because it's coming from very high domain authority, trusted websites. But not only that, these are the links that your competitors can't clone, right? Because if you and I are competing and you go sign up for the Better Business Bureau, I can use a tool that sees that Charlie signed up for the Better Business Bureau. I go sign up for the Better Business Bureau, right? But if you put together this full study, right, and all of a sudden you're reaching out to the media and building relationships and they're all linking back to your website, I'm just like, checkmate, you got me, right? What can I do there, right?
That's good. So, Jason, one of the things I find really interesting about where you sit is it's not just Hennessey Digital. There's also Hennessey Studios, and so everything that I've seen, you live at this intersection of marketing that you're doing for a profession that has only been doing marketing now for, I guess we're close to 50 years,
Yes,
which
in the
is pretty
70s.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the new wave of content with, say, short form video artists, musical artists, etc. I'm curious what lessons you're drawing into each space from the other with the old school and the new school.
Yeah. So my studio is really it, don't get me wrong, we do use it to help promote, some of the Hennessey Digital stuff, but it's like they're having a film festival there this week, right? Where they're basically, all these independent filmmakers are basically kind of screening their movies, and then they're coming and talking about it. You know what? I figured this. Like I created that for two reasons. One, I realized that video is a very powerful medium, and I wanted to have a good place to kind of go and record some of my own video content, but also lease it out to other people. B, I'm in Los Angeles, right, which is the epicenter for the entertainment industry, right? And so, we have people like the TV show The Bachelor and Love Island that come in and use our studio to do like podcast and things along those lines. So, it also creates a level of entertainment for me, and it creates a lot of connections within the local industry as well. But at the end of the day, it's just, you got to figure out what you love in life, and then just kind of take action. And so that's really it. I've got a love for, this SEO. That's a real passion of mine. And I wanted to create a cool spot in Los Angeles where I could record some of my own content, but I could also network and lease it out to others that kind of need that same space.
Have you ever picked up any cool marketing ideas from, say, the studio side, like watching some of these organizations, Bachelor, Love Island, et cetera, come in, do their work, that you've then said, oh, this might be cool to, or more attorneys should be aware of maybe the direct strategy, or even the way that they use like television commercial promos to be a little bit more outrageous, et cetera, over on the other side?
Yeah. I think the biggest is we do have a lot of influencers that come in and use the space, right? And so influencer marketing is still like a very new, green space, right? And so it's really interesting how these influencers come in, and the only way that they got influence is by leveraging other influencers, right? And so that's really a powerful kind of dynamic, right? And so that's how I was able to build a pretty decent sized following on Instagram, was by leveraging other influencers, right? So I had a podcast where I'd bring somebody else in that might have 13 million followers, right? And so now I'm interviewing them, they're on my show, we're promoting it, they're then promoting me, right? And, next thing you get, thousands and thousands of new, followers, right? And so that's a pretty powerful thing, is, it's sometimes you don't realize it, right? Like, but if you look in a small classroom and there's 20 people, right, you still have 20 captive eyeballs, right, that are kind of like paying attention, right? It doesn't really mean much, but it's 20, right?
Yep.
But, once you fill up, like my son goes to the University of Oregon, and there's classrooms that have like 1,200 people in there, right? But if you look at social media and you only have 1,200 followers, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's not a little, you know what I mean? That's like literally like a whole full size, like, mega classroom that's like paying attention what you have to say, right? So like a lot of times people like, they get discouraged because they only have 1,100 followers, right? But that's okay. Right. You need to start there to get 2,000 and 5,000. And then you got to be interesting too, right? You got to put out good content.
So actually, to that end, are there ways that law firms could be either using influencer marketing strategies or potentially working with influencers that you don't see them doing right now?
100%. I think, in fact, I was texting a friend of mine, Digger, from Laborde and Earls, yesterday, because I posted something where I was at Raising Cane's, right? And I was just having like dinner with my family. It's a chicken place, right? And so, Digger messaged me. He said, "Oh man, that guy's story is so inspiring. You know what I mean? He's a friend." And then we just started texting back and forth. And I said, "Man, you need to follow him on social because he's doing social media right." Basically for Raising Cane's, he's really leveraging like influencers, right? And he's getting them to come down to the store and to like put on the outfit and to serve like the Raising Cane's. And, they even created a Raising Cane's in Dallas, Texas, like, and Post Malone is one of the owners, and it's like the coolest Raising Cane's, right? So like I think like a lot of law firms like should be leveraging influencers in their market to come to their their place and maybe give away T-shirts or do signings or take photos in front of like a step and repeat where it has the branding behind it, right? Because you'd be surprised, man. They could put out one TikTok or one Instagram post, and next thing you know, you have 500 people, 600 people showing up at your law firm, all creating buzz, about your firm just because they're there.
I think one of the things that holds a lot of firm owners up is even if they're clued into this idea is they don't know how to reach out. So you have that potential insight there. How do you reach out to these folks?
You'd be surprised. A lot of times, while they seem like it's really hard to get in touch with them, I mean, these people are like, they're not like, they're not extremely wealthy. You know what I mean? Like they'll take, $1,000, $2,000 to do, I mean? It's not that expensive in comparison to what these law firms are used to paying for marketing. Right. You know what I mean? Like, in fact, I feel like it's still one of the cheapest set of eyeballs that a law firm could get is influencer marketing. Right. So I would just basically just reach out, and say, hey, I'd love to collaborate with you about, some social media, collaboration between my firm and your brand. And I'd love, maybe see if we can get lunch. And sometimes like they'll have like their manager's information on their, if they're bigger, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, Kim Kardashian is not going to be cheap. You know what I mean? Like, right? I don't want to like misspeak here, but for somebody that's like a TikTok influencer that's in a local market that, is into something, it should be pretty easy to get in touch with them.
That's interesting. I've seen some firms go down the route of NCAA NIL deals.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Reaching out there because you have guaranteed potential local influence if you have that local university. So honestly, Jason, one of the other things I want to ask you about is you've grown this incredible company, but you recently went on a personal journey of going through weight loss that you talked about kind of openly online. I'm curious, like what inspired you to go in that direction to share your journey? And then I want to ask what worked for you.
Yeah. So, truth be told, I belong to a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And so it's a group that, you meet with on a monthly basis, and you're there to basically inspire each other and hold each other accountable. And so about a year and a half ago, I showed up to a meeting. I was about 235 pounds, sitting there in the meeting, drinking a Coca-Cola, and the topic of like, of getting, a checkup, right? It was a physical. That's the word I was looking for, a physical, like, and it came up, and I'm like, you know what? Like, come to think of it, I haven't had like a physical in like 3 years, and they looked at me like, what? Like, you're a smart guy. Like, I don't get it. Why haven't you had a physical? And I'm just like, I didn't have an answer. They're like, we're holding you accountable. Within the next 30 days, you got to go get a physical, And so, so just by coincidence, my wife and I went to dinner that night, and we were sitting there, and we started talking with a couple next to us, and he just happened to be a doctor that was in my town. Who
really?
was booked, who was booked for like the next 8 months and couldn't get anybody in. But because I met his wife and him at dinner, and I told him the story, the coincidence, he got me in that next week. We did some blood work. My A1C was high. It was like a 7.2, which is kind of like a pre-diabetic. And he basically said, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that you're pre-diabetic, and I'm gonna have to put you on some medication. The good news is that if you lose 50 pounds, you can get off of that medication and, and be around for a lot longer for your daughter and your kids. And so that's it, And so basically, we went down that journey, and I just changed my life. And it's just simple choices in life. Instead of a Coke, drink water, instead of bread, drink salad, eat salad, all that kind of stuff, right? It's all the basic stuff that you learn that everybody knows, but just the discipline's hard. So just having discipline, and now fast forward, I'm down, like I weigh like 170 pounds. I feel much better. I'm healthier.
Awesome.
I no diabetes and nothing like that anymore. Like I went to the doctor recently. Now I'm doing like physicals every 6 months, right? I'm like went to the doctor recently. He's like, I got nothing for you, man. Like I don't have anything to say. You're good. Just keep doing what you're doing. So
That's amazing. Now, I lied. There was actually one more other unusual point of inquiry that I wanted to make here, which is related to your location, Hennessey Studios. You also have this business. I see online you've been able to create these really cool opportunities for your kids. I see Zach, I see Brooklyn, all these. I can't remember your other kid's
JJ,
name,
yeah,
huh?
JJ, yeah,
JJ.
JJ, yeah. Mhm.
So I see them online, and I have to imagine that this is you're able to live this very cool lifestyle, create some really cool opportunities, but you're also a guy who's built your own thing. I'm curious as a parent how you're balancing that whole we've got it good, but there's also the hard work and opportunities, but all of that. I think you live in a really cool place in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It really is. It's a balance. And you get better over time. So now with Brooklyn, our third child, who's 8, right? I have a 21-year-old and I've got an 8-year-old, right? And I made a lot of the mistakes with my, my 21-year-old. For instance, I'm not doing as much traveling these days, right? Whereas when
Yeah.
my 21-year-old was 8, I'd be at conferences all over the place. And I felt like, now I'm home more, I'm granted, like my business has got me in a place where I could be home a little bit more. Right. Whereas back then I might not have had that option, but I'm
Right.
choosing, to do that. And we only have one chance at being a good parent. You know what I mean? Like there's no like second chance really. I guess there could be, but the memories are the memories, right?
Yes.
And so, we moved to LA for my son when he was like 10 years old so that he can pursue acting. Like sold my company, packed
Wow.
up, moved out west, and he started getting into acting. You know what I mean? And he'll forever be grateful of that. Whereas a lot of people would never do that. But we did it. So
That's incredible. So
yeah.
what kind of projects does he have coming up these days?
So this was when he was like 10, 11, and he did it till he was about 16 years old. But he was doing like Nickelodeon. He was on some Disney shows. He auditioned for some pretty big roles like Stranger Things. He got to multiple rounds of auditions and
That
never
is
made it.
hard.
Yeah, so he never really like landed his like breakout, like, hey, I'm an A-star celebrity now. But boy, did he get a lot of great experience. He built up a very thick skin. He knows how to deal with rejection, and so that's serving him very well in college, and will forever serve him well in life for sure.
How do you help your kids sort of understand the entrepreneurial journey? Is that a discussion you have with them?
There's two ways of teaching, right? There's talking and doing, right? And I think they were either fortunate or unfortunate in getting a dad who was an entrepreneur, right? And so I think just kind of watching me every day as they grew up, like the things I do, taking phone calls, how I talk to people, right? And then, now, and then my son, Zach, took a year, and my son, JJ, but they both basically shadowed me after high school, where they started coming to the conferences and seeing me speak on stage to a group of 1,000 people. I'm like, whoa, Dad, I didn't know you could do that. You know what I mean? So like, I think they're able to just kind of see and, see me now, but, just growing up, it's just kind of watching what I did.
It's awesome. Truly, that's been one of my favorite things in watching what you put out there online. Is I think this is a marketing lesson for everyone. Is as much as you clearly have the expertise, know what you're talking about, and it's interesting that even as CEO with a company that I think is it 140 team members?
Yeah, we're about just under that, maybe about 135, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So with a company that size, still really knowing your stuff on a technical level while also respecting the entrepreneurial work that you do.
Hmm.
Plus, sharing, you know, what you do with your family, the exciting times that you have with them, the other journeys that you have. That's a big lesson for a lot of folks that even in a very technical profession, I imagine what a lot of people lock into is the stuff outside of that that makes you really memorable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so many people tell me that, like, in fact, in most cases, it's nobody really ever remembers, the number one ranking that we got for this one keyword that I was so proud of that I shared on social media, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh my God, I saw that you just took your family to Europe for 30 days. And oh my God, that was so cool. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Or even like, I don't really take myself too seriously. Like, like there's so much comedy and humor in the world, and so when I find something funny, like I just share it, and so it's just a balance. I'm so passionate about the SEO and building business, and that's just one side of me. I'm a family man, right? That's another side of me. But then there's also like, hey, don't take life so serious either, right? And so I try to blend those three together and keep everybody kind of on their toes, if you follow me, So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So Jason, before I ask you the final question here, if folks want to learn more about Hennessey Digital, information from you, follow you, etc., what's the best place to send them to?
Yeah, thank you. I'd say social like LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm very active. I create video content every single day on Instagram, and it's little short, 2-3 minute videos that that inspire me. That hopefully you get some value from that. And then for Hennessey Digital, you can just go to hennessey.com, HENNESSEY. Yeah, I'd love to connect. And again, please take me up on that book offer for sure. Send me an email, jason@hennessey.com. And like I said, I'll cover the cost of shipping the book out to you as my gift for spending some time with us on this podcast.
I will say I work with folks who work with Hennessey Digital, and they are consistently impressed with what your team does for them, how well updated they are, how comprehensive everything is. So on behalf of them, thank you for the work you all put in. And then the last question for you, what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
So I just started to read a book by Dan. It's called Buy Back Your Time.
Dan Martell. It's a fantastic book.
Yes. So I just have it there. I just started it. I'm not done with it, but I find him pretty inspiring. He puts out a lot of really good content on social. So that's what I'm reading. What am I watching? I don't really watch a lot of TV. I do watch a lot of like SEO videos, tutorial videos. I watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So that's really where I spend a lot of my time. And then the other time I'm just kind of doing things with family and creating memories, So, yep.
That's awesome. Jason, truly, thank you for your time, your energy, your insights, your resources, for the book offer for everyone listening, and for all the work that you do for law firm owners out there. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you, Charlie.
And we'll see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.